very dirty. I don't know why
Oh.
she's surprised.
I wasn't surprised.
Oh, she wasn't surprised. She was just stating a fact.
Yep. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. That little bit was about Christopher getting down and shoving a blue ball in his mouth.
Yep, the closer I can get to the ball, the better.
All right, so we are live on YouTube.
Live on YouTube. We finally got it working.
Yes, we did, and that's very interesting.
Thank you, Devin, for figuring that out.
Yes, you're welcome. It will be interesting to see how this goes. This is the first time we've ever done it with YouTube. We're not new to Hangouts on Air, but now that Hangouts on Air is part of YouTube, we haven't done it this way before, so it'll be interesting. But anyways, welcome to the Sharkbone Podcast.
I hear the first time's the hardest. They say that.
This is Pod Chatter number 18 being recorded on Thursday, September 15th, 2016. My name is Devin.
I'm Christopher.
And we are here to talk about some wonderful tabletop RPG goodness. Specifically, we're going to be talking about railroading. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Sorry, I got derailed.
Who needs a soundboard when we've got Christopher here? So, very first thing, like all of our episodes, this episode is brought to you by our wonderful, wonderful patrons. So, thanks very much go to Contrell, Chris, Michael, Colin, Jeff, Lucas, and Ricardo. Thank you also very much for your support. If you would like to become a patron as well, you can do so at patreon.com/sharkbonepodcast. Just a couple bucks will help us keep bringing this wonderful, wonderful show to you.
And we like bringing stuff to you because... What?
Yeah, we love bringing stuff. Bringing stuff
is
excellent.
I love bringing it. I'm all about bringing it because it's been brung, bro. And yes, for all those who aren't live, I am super white.
It's as if you couldn't tell from our voices.
Well, you know.
Not that, yeah.
I could go with the low voice.
That was a little bit of a stereotype, and I apologize for that. That was no good. So let's go ahead and knock out some announcements. Do you have any announcements for this week?
I do. Holy fuck, where to start? Okay, first off, we have an explicit tag rating, so there's an announcement for those who are new. We swear a lot on this show because it's the kind of people we are, I guess. But yeah, my entire world just changed yesterday because I am no longer employed. Yesterday was my last day of work at Apple.
Oh, man. How does that feel?
Oh, my God. It's bittersweet. I am super glad to be done with that job because it's been killing me little by little for 5 years. Don't get me wrong. Apple as a company is amazing. The benefits were great. The stuff that they do for us as employees is top-notch. Their business practices are some of the best in the world. And, you know, Apple holds all of its suppliers to the same high standards. So Apple as a company is amazing, but my job was just sucking my soul out.
How long does your separation contract require you to say good things about them?
I have no separation contract.
Oh, so this is real. This is how you feel. Oh my goodness.
It's really how
real
I feel.
People.
I've got this whole container of Kool-Aid that I'm bringing to a catacomb to feed everybody else.
What color is Apple Kool-Aid?
My Apple Kool-Aid was green.
Ah.
Because, little known fact, on our employee IDs, it has an Apple logo on it. And if you're an Apple employee and not just a contractor, your Apple is colored.
Okay.
And so, like, if you remember the old 80s, 90s Apple logo with all the color stripes through it.
Yeah.
Those were So every Apple employee, their badge had a solid apple of one of those colors. And mine was green.
Interesting.
So my Apple Kool-Aid was green.
So as far as announcements for me go, I got conned into running a Smallville play-by-post game.
Yeah, you did.
and we are getting quite a few of the old crew from the the original Smallville play-by-post game that we talk about so often
Yep.
back, and we're going to be doing that on gamersplain.com. I didn't realize that there were going to be some other people who were interested in it as well. I had a couple of people trying to jump into that game, and I was like, I'm sorry, we already have players set up for this. And I know that I'm probably crazy for saying this, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and run
The second
another
one.
Smallville game. Yeah,
Right.
and invite people to join. If you are interested in taking part in something like that, please email me, sharkbonecast@gmail.com, and I'll see how many interested we have and how many spots I can open up. Because Smallville is amazing. It's a wonderful game. It makes for some awesome stories.
It really does.
And I am completely insane because I'm already in 6 play-by-post games on Gamersplain, including this Smallville game that we started
Well,
with you.
5.5 because my game's on hiatus right now as I'm, moving across the country.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm doing a lot. I'm doing a lot of stuff over there, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a lot of fun. If you are watching us on YouTube, I think there's a live chat that you can. Yes, there's a live chat that you can participate in over on the right side. I think you can participate in it. I hope so. That's our plan anyway. So if you have any questions or comments or something you want us to say, go ahead and throw it up there, and we will talk about it if we feel like it contributes to the conversation.
So do we have a way of seeing what is chatted about?
On the YouTube page.
Oh,
I've
I
got
have
the
to go to
YouTube page open. I think so. Yeah.
Okay, well, I will have to find a link to that YouTube page.
They're all over the place.
Oh man, if only I knew you on like some social media something and
I
was
know.
able to YouTube it. Man,
Wouldn't that be great?
it would be.
We've got one viewer, and I think it might be me.
Well, I just clocked in. So
we'll see if the viewer count goes up.
Alrighty. Then I just have to take this, move it over yonder.
And
wow, that is so
kaboot.
disconcerting.
I know.
Like I'm seeing myself talking like a few seconds. Weird.
Yeah, we've got 2 viewers. No, we had 2 viewers. Now we're back down to 1. Anyways, let's start talking about some railroading, shall we?
We shall.
So,
oh man, there you go, railroading me in the conversation already.
Oh, I know. I got to keep you on the tracks because otherwise you're the little engine that couldn't stay on the tracks, and you'll just hop right off and dig into some farmer's fields and then explode in fiery explosion and rain, explosive fire everywhere.
Right, because obviously it's a tanker train full of napalm.
Yes, because why wouldn't it be? Honestly,
exactly. That's the only chance we have. It's the only option.
So what this was your topic suggestion. What is railroading to you?
Railroading to me is kind of a two-sided thing, because railroading in the most basic form, railroading is following the breadcrumbs from point A to point B to point C in order that the GM gives it to you.
Okay.
Now, railroading is usually used as a negative to say, oh, the GM's railroading, so we can only do what the GM tells us to do or only go where the GM allows us to do. But a little bit of railroading here and there is not always bad. Because let's take a dungeon, for example. Dungeons are the definition of railroad. You go from room 1 to room 2 to room 3 to room 4 to boss room. It's a railroad, but people love it because it's a well-done railroad. I'm not talking about, because I'm sure we've all had those games where the GM was railroading to a ridiculous degree. It might have been they had this elaborate story laid out and we had to do exactly what they wanted, how they wanted, when they wanted. Or maybe it was just a new GM who was running a pre-made adventure and wasn't comfortable enough going off script, and so no, you can't do that because the pre-written adventure doesn't cover that, so I don't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So those types of railroading are bad, but sometimes, most times, a little bit of railroading is good, because I'm sure we've all been in the exact opposite situation where the GM says, "You're in town." Okay, and you're in town. What do you do? Um, what is there to do? It's a town. You can do town stuff. Okay, I walk out of town. All right, now we're getting somewhere where there's so a little bit of railroading is good because the GM needs to give players a hook in order for them to know where the adventure is, in order to let them know what is expected of the session. But if you don't give them that, even just a little bit of push or nudge, I guess, in the right direction, they have no idea what to do. And so railroading is good because it gives you limited choices.
Okay. So did you just blow through all of your points for discussion already?
Oh no, I have lots more. Don't worry.
So, in my opinion, railroading is when the story, like, there's nothing to the story away from the plot that the GM has scripted out. Whether that is the thing that, goodness, I'm stumbling over my words tonight. I apologize for that. Whether that comes in the form of the GM just saying there's nothing interesting except right here. This inn is the only thing that has anything interesting going on in it. So your players and your characters can go anywhere they want, see anything they want. There's just nothing there. And then finally, when they go to the place that the GM has something planned for, oh, there's the dark, interesting stranger with the big, voluminous cloak and holding the magic sword and saying, "You must take this to defeat the bad guy." And things like that. And that is a form of railroading. Just anytime your decisions have little to do with advancing the plot, I think that would be railroading. So, do you like it?
Yes. As a player, I like it. As a player, I love it because, like I said, I've been in those situations where the GM doesn't give you anything. So I honestly would rather have the GM let me know because we've all been there. We have a specific storyline written up, ready to go for this session. Everyone gets there, and 10 minutes later, the players are going off in a complete different direction. So what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I tell my players, look, this is the adventure I have planned. This is what I have written out. If you don't want to follow that lead and do what I had planned out, that's fine. It's not going to be as good because, it's not what I had planned. I'd have to go more off the cuff, but we can totally do that. Or, if you don't mind fudging a little bit, we'll do this time, and I'll definitely get a better adventure next session where we go where you guys want it to go. So
Okay.
as a player, I enjoy the GM letting me know what he has planned because otherwise we're flopping around like beached whales until we stumble across what the GM had planned. So give me a little bit of railroad so I can follow the tracks, but give me a couple hundred yards on either side of the tracks to explore. But yeah, let me know where we're going so I can help further the plot and we can actually get somewhere as opposed to spending 8 hours shopping.
Interesting. Very interesting. As personally, as a GM and a player, I don't. You know what? Right after we did the episode about the 3-act story structure, and I really really liked it, and I did a bunch of adventures that were right in the three-act story structure,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt like a railroad because I didn't have the freedom to kind of modify things to go left or right of the track that I had laid down. And as GM, I didn't like that, so I would change things on the fly, pretty much destroying the railroad as we were beginning to trail along it, because it didn't fit where the players and myself were taking the story at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And also, as a player, I don't like feeling that my decisions have little to do with the direction the plot is taking. If I'm playing a vampire and I decide that I want to try and assassinate the prince, I want that to be a change or a twist in the story that the GM has planned. I want that to matter. I don't want them to just say, okay, you tried and you failed and now they're looking for you. And then we just keep going on the railroad. It's like, okay, well, they're looking for me, but does that make anything else difficult? No, they're just looking for you. Okay.
Yeah, that's, I think, going a little far into
Weird.
the bad railroading category.
Maybe. But it's I'm just expressing
Yeah.
my feelings to start with.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, it's fine. I was done ranting or whatever I was doing right there. But let's talk about the good, because we're doing the good, the bad, the ugly.
Right.
So what's good about railroading?
Well, like I said earlier, the good about railroading is you have a structure, you know what you're doing, you know, as a player, you know what the GM has planned. As a GM, you know what you have planned. And, you know, it doesn't have to be very specific, like, you know, a published module that you'd buy from WotC or something with every little detail written in. It could be something simple like, you know, point A, there's this, point B, there's this, and point C, there's this, and they can go in whatever order they want to. So a little bit of railroading, actually, any adventure outline could be considered a railroad because you have specific things at specific locations, but at least you know what's happening and where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
You have the first scene and the last scene, and then you can either be a straight line or it can be a curvy line or zigzag line or a dotted line on your way over there as you just jump over things and ignore what you want. So,
right.
you know, as most players are wont to do, the very important clue they completely miss, and then the inconsequential thing like, ooh, this is important.
Yeah.
But especially for new GMs, railroading is a great way to start learning how to tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
And as your players are throwing more and more things at you, it gives you a structured way to deviate from the script a little bit and could help budding GMs to get their feet wet, as it were.
Yeah. I think going along with that, railroading can also help you find problem areas with your group, because every group's different. We know that. Mm-hmm. Just like everyone's body is different. You know, it's just personalities, group dynamics, all that kind of stuff. They're so different between different groups that you could be doing something with one group very successfully, and then when you bring that technique over to another group, it fails miserably. So if you come to a new group and you've got a railroad, and you've got different things in each part, what works and what doesn't, and because you have it all scripted out and all structured, it's not going to be, or it's going to be easier to tell when things are going badly and when they're going well, because you have already planned what is supposed to happen in each scene, where that scene is supposed to direct to. Maybe you've got one group who is really into figuring out clues. So you can give them just a little bit of information, and then they will sit down and they will brainstorm trying to figure things out. You go to another group and you give them those same little bit of clues, and they're like, where's the glowing sign that tells me who the bad guy is? I can't figure this out, or I don't want to put the effort into figuring this out, or we're just not very good at that. You know, it could be a lot of things. So railroading is nice for that. Also, I just had a thought that you could also, as a player, make a railroad for your character. You could come to the game and have a story arc that you want the GM, or you want to help the GM weave into the overarching plot that the GM has formed. You can say, you know, my guy's a real bastard, but I want him to be redeemed at the end. Or you could say, my guy is a goody two-shoes, but I want him to slog through the muck society has to offer, and I want to see where he's at when he comes out on the other end. And so you can take junctures and tracks and lay them down in the story as well, and say, GM, this needs to happen next for me. This needs to happen next for me. And so that would be a good way of using the railroad.
Yes, all very good points. And so railroading is really just a story structure.
Yeah.
If you break it down, it's just describing how you go from beginning of adventure to end of adventure.
So that's really crazy. We've just gone over the good, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, that all sounds very reasonable. That all sounds great. Why don't I like railroading? Because everything we've talked about right now sounds amazing and helpful.
Yes, but then let's get to the bad.
Uh huh. It's about that time, I think.
Yep. And the bad is obviously over railroading. The GM who has written a story and just has the players play parts in the story he or she has written.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, what's the point of me even coming here? You made my character. You tell me what decisions I have to make. Why am I even playing this game? Because it's not a game. It's me listening to you talk about how awesome your story is.
Yeah. If you as the GM have to stop a player to say your character wouldn't do that because, or your character would know that that's a bad idea because, doing that occasionally, I've done that,
Yeah.
and it can help players come to terms with the setting and know things, make decisions with knowledge their character would have that they don't have.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing that constantly, you might be a bad railroader. So take a pause, look at what you're doing, and see if this is going to work for the group
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah. If you're doing that, maybe you should write a book instead.
Maybe. Although I am going to say that there are groups that will love that kind of railroaded story.
I've never been in a group like that. We are way too stubborn and crazy to follow any written script.
I've played with a couple players in my gaming career that really appreciate it when people tell them what their character would do or what to do with their character. It's weird. I don't understand playing like that because that's not my style. But there are people out there that do that.
And if you're having fun, you're doing it right, and that's the important thing. It's kind of
Exactly.
weird from
Uh,
my perspective.
well,
It's weird.
from your perspective, yeah.
Yeah, because you'll find that
Let's
many
not
truths
alienate anybody.
right, because you'll find that many truths we cling to depend greatly upon your own point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the great wise Christopher.
Actually, that was Obi-Wan.
Oh, I'm sure someone else said it,
Yes,
but you said it just now.
it's true. I did just now.
So, what other bad things happen in railroading?
Um, on the player side, because we've been talking a lot about how railroading is bad GMing, but on the player side, it can be bad if you are so single-mindedly determined to do certain things that you just are completely oblivious to everybody else
Mm-hmm.
and everything else. Like the GM is giving you a bajillion clues about how to do something. And you're like, no, I'm doing it this way. This is the way that it's happening
Right.
because this is because of A, B, and C. This is the obvious D. It's like, yeah, but here are some options to give you D prime or D double prime.
Mm-hmm. Or Z.
Wow, now you're just jumping all the way to the end of the alphabet.
I like jumping to the end. The end's the best part.
Yeah, but it's the buildup that gets to the end that makes the end worth it.
I have a feeling we're not talking about gaming right now.
I'm talking about reading books, of
Mm-hmm. Yes,
course,
that's what we're talking about.
always.
Reading books. So yeah, that's a very good point. Anytime a player has latched on to some kind of railroad and they don't have any give in their perception of the story or the direction they want to take the story. And just before I said it would be great for every player to have like railroad junctions that they help the GM include in the story.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes a bad thing if you focus solely on your railroad and you don't allow for deviations for the other characters because your character is not the only one participating in the game. There are a lot of other characters out there who have their own story to tell as well.
Yeah, it's kind of the Michael Knight versus Team Knight Rider debate.
I don't know anything about that debate.
Well, it's not really a debate; it's just an analogy because Michael Knight is Knight Rider, and he is the main character, and he always does everything himself because the show's about him. But then you've got Team Knight Rider, where there's like 6 of them,
Okay.
and so it's not always about just one character.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you got to share the spotlight time.
Yeah, you do. You do, and that's very important in a game group, and in sessions as you play.
Mm-hmm.
So, what else is bad about railroading, do you think? I mean, there's so many things we could say about this, and I don't want to get too negative, but
Yeah. Want to try to stay
hopefully,
slightly upbeat.
yeah, hopefully, as you're listening to this, you're not taking it as a criticism or that we are damning certain styles of play, because that's not the purpose of this. We're just having a discussion about things that we've seen that we think either work or don't work. Although when we get to the ugly, we might have to just nuke that part of the conversation. I don't know.
Yeah, and again, all of this is from our perspective and from our experiences.
Yes.
So if your perspective and experience is different, get in touch with us and let us know. If you can tweet at us, great. If you need to send us an email, we'll read it on the air if you want to, so everyone else can listen to an alternative yet equally valid point of view.
Mm-hmm. If you do want to tweet at us, I'm at shark_bone.
And I am at Eldritch Fire.
And the email again is sharkbonecast@gmail.com. And so more bad stuff. Railroading.
I'm racking my brains for bad experiences, but
railroading can also be really bad because it doesn't allow for surprises in the game. And I recently had an experience with that with my D&D game. I was running the Legacy of Fire Adventure Path, which was really fun. I had a lot of fun reading it and everything. But after I read the adventures, so that I would be familiar with them to run them, I'd go to my group and I'd run them. There were never any surprises for me. My fun turned into, there's this really cool monster. There's this really cool encounter. I'm going to spring it on them. And so I'd spring it on them, and I'd start using really cool powers or something. And like, it would either be not powerful enough, and so it just kind of fizzled out and died as they slaughtered the beast in 1 or 2 rounds.
Yep.
Or it would become really powerful, and they would just get upset because I was getting close to killing their characters. I think I actually did kill 3 characters in the time I was running that game.
Resurrection's pretty cheap. It's fine.
Well, not at low levels.
Fair.
One guy lost two characters. So he played 3 characters, and then the next one, they died, and they were devastated. And so I was like, maybe you're not all the way dead. Maybe we can do something about this.
Mostly dead.
Which is also partly alive.
Exactly. And that also kind of brings an interesting topic, or an interesting point, but I'll let you finish up what you were saying.
So yeah, just the lack of surprise. As it's the same for players. If you have that railroad for your player, you can stop being surprised by things as the GM starts working those encounters that you had thought of into the story. So you know what the next step is. And so when it actually happens, you're like, okay, yeah, next step. Ooh, I'm not excited by this as much as I thought I would be. And I found through that game that I really like the surprises that a more loosely structured story gives. It allows for the players to go out and do wacky things, and then everyone sits at the table thinking, what does that mean? How does this change the world? And then you come up with a solution. You're like, damn, I never saw that coming. That is amazing.
Those are always the best.
Yeah, they can be awesome. I just had that in my First Contact X-Core game on Monday. We were playing a alien survival game set here in Las Vegas, and I said, guys, I'm not interested at the beginning. I said, I'm not interested in playing military guys fighting against the invasion. I want to play normal people fighting to survive as the aliens assault the earth and start taking it over. Does that sound cool? And everyone was like, yeah, that sounds great. So we're starting playing this and they're struggling. They're going around. Everything's just completely random as they're trying to get themselves set up to actually survive in this alien apocalypse. And then someone says, well, let's go to Nellis Air Force Base. They go to Nellis Air Force Base. There's nothing there, because it's a big Air Force base. Of course, it would be demolished. And so they're like, maybe Area 51. And Area 51 is a little small place on the other side of the mountain. So they drive over there and they're met by some Air Force people. And so they decide, we're going to work with the Air Force. Totally changed the complete theme of the game. So we had to stop it right there. I was like, all right, this is very different than what we had planned at the beginning. Let's stop. Let's talk about what this is going to mean going forward. What do you guys want to do? And everything like that. And we had a blast doing it.
Yeah, I think that goes kind of with what you were saying earlier, is that too much railroading doesn't let you get that surprises. But if you're flexible enough, going with the whole train analogy, you hit a junction at that point. So you could have been like, no, we're not doing, we discussed in the beginning, we're not doing military. So Area 51 is going to be blown up, or it's not there, or it's been picked clean or something. So you could have just kept going on straight on the tracks, or you could be like, yeah, this could totally work, and you hit that switch and you go on to another set of tracks. And it's no more or less railroady than you've been doing. It's just a different direction.
Yeah, that's a good point. Railroads can be flexible as well.
Yep. I learned that by playing Transport Tycoon on MS-DOS. That's how old that game is.
Oh, wow. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it really was.
Wow.
Windows 95 was the new shiny at that point.
I remember when Windows 95 came out. That was good.
Yep, good times.
So do you have any other bad that you want to throw out for this part of the discussion?
Yeah, because you were saying earlier about having characters die because of encounters gone wrong. If you are too focused on the story as a GM, you might not throw out interesting or exciting encounters for the players for fear of having a character die, which would completely upset the entire story that you were trying to weave. So if you're too focused on the tracks, you might pull your punches and keep throwing easy encounters at the players and not actually challenging the characters, which can lead to, ho-hum, this is boring. Why do I even need to worry? I just need to roll a 5 or more in my D10.
Yeah.
And then I completely succeed at this entire task that would, normally take like forever. I'm
stumbling over my words again. So you saying that makes me think that Dungeons and Dragons might be predicated on a railroad.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because they're like, so many encounters should get you this much XP to get to the next level or something like that. Fourth edition was really heavy on that, I hear.
Oh, yeah.
There was some math and thinking about that in third edition as well. But not so much. Even like 13th Age does that, I believe.
I've not read. I read a little bit of 13th Age, but that was a long time ago.
Even Shadow of the Demon Lord, though, they've got a certain number of sessions that should take you to each level, and then a set number of levels. So you've got a railroad right there.
Yep.
So you've got a little bit of structure, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, that kind of railroad. I mean,
right.
Just enough structure. Yeah. It gives you a guide. It gives you a direction in which to go.
Yes. And I think that was one of the, I don't want to say the most innovative, because other games have been doing it that way, but like one of the biggest draws for Shadow of the Demon Lord to me was the wibbly wobbly nature of it. It's like one session, one level, boom, done. You could fight 8 bajillion NPCs. You could fight no NPCs. After a successful adventure session, you gain a level. Every now and again, you do a two-parter because cliffhangers are fun, but the idea is you get from level 1 to level 2, or level 0 to 1 to 2, all the way up to 10. So you've got 11 sessions to gain, go from 0 to 10, 0 to hero, and you tell that one story that just, does that small section of time, and then you're done. If you want to tell another story with other characters, you can. You can, if you want to, break it down into having multiple sessions per level to stretch it out. So you can say have one story that goes from level 0 to 3, or 0, 1, 2, and then because the novice, expert, master levels, you could have discrete adventures that go multiple sessions for each of those, or you can just have one really big story arc. The mini series versus movie versus TV series.
I wonder what other games have railroads like that built into them.
7C Second Edition, the experience mechanic.
Okay.
Is you first off, you decide what benefit you're getting. So I'm increasing this skill from 2 dots to 3, or I'm gaining this 4-point advantage.
What's that called again?
Stories.
Yeah. So it's a structured way of what I was talking about earlier, about setting a railroad for your character. That's probably where I got the idea, actually.
Maybe. Because the whole thing is you have anywhere from 1 to 5 steps in this story, and then you have a final step, which is the conclusion. And once you've concluded your mini arc, then you get whatever benefit you were going for, whether it's skill increase, attribute increase, ability, whatever. And you choose beforehand, and you're like, okay, here is the story. I want to gain, weaponry 1 because I have no skill at arms. Okay, well, that's going to be a really short story because it's only 1 step. So I go training with the weapons master on our ship. Congratulations, I just got 1 point in weaponry. But say you wanted to get the get the 5th dot in weaponry. Well, you have to go on a long quest in order to find the master to teach you. If you want to if you don't mind an Avatar: The Last Airbender reference, the episode where Sokka gets his sky sword is a great culmination of a story because he's Thank you, sweetie, for making me laugh on live camera. Appreciate it.
Sorry.
She just started quoting funny Sokka references at me. Yes,
she derailed you.
Totally derailed me. But he's been, when we first meet him, he's this little pipsqueak who's the comic relief of the show. And then he goes through several transformations that culminate in him training to be an actual fighter, and at the end he gets his unique sky sword.
That's cool. And now that you mentioned the 7C Second Edition, I really like the way they did that, because you've got all those steps to the story, but you only decide what the next one is.
Right. It's very limited railroading. It's like, okay, what do I need to do next to get closer to my goal?
So do you think we could apply that to the story overall? Could the GM apply that to the overall story? Actually, the GM probably already does.
Yeah. The GM has specific GM stories.
And you've got, I'm not saying just in 2nd edition 7C. I'm saying in general, when a GM preps for a story, you prep a session, and you've got a beginning. Well, I'm assuming here that people do this, but you've got an idea for the beginning, the middle, and the end of the arc of that session. And so the characters will do whatever they will do in that session, and things will happen, consequences will ensue. And then at the end of the session, you stop and you say, okay, what happens next? That's exactly that. Oh my goodness.
Epiphany moment.
I had an epiphany. I don't know that it's going to change the way I do things because I pretty much do things that way anyway. I just realized that that's the way I was doing them.
Yeah, but now that you know, that knowledge is power.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
Yes. Awesome. That's cool. So maybe we should touch a little bit on the ugly and then wrap this thing up.
Would you like to go first? Because I really don't have anything for ugly that I haven't already said.
Well, I mean, the ugly, using railroading as a crutch.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a GM and you're clinging on to that railroaded story because you don't know what else to do, I encourage you to let that go. Let that go. Get out there, be brave, and try and do things a little differently. Be a little more flexible. Maybe it'll crash and burn. But if all your players are your friends, they will understand and they will be there to help you pick up the pieces.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to let them know that, hey, I'm doing this totally off the cuff. The the tracks are 5 miles that way, and we're on the wrong side of the tracks. But we're gonna give it a shot and see how it works.
Yeah.
Or you can always because I think as a new GM, I was always afraid to talk about my story with my players because it's my story and they shouldn't know what's happening because it has to be a surprise for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned more recently than I'd like to admit, but in the past few years, to talk with your players about these things. Be like, look, here's what I had planned. We can go on, but I'm not going to be as good because I don't have anything else planned. Or I totally didn't expect that. Give me, 5-10 minutes to, figure something out. Don't be afraid to tell your players when they are jumping the tracks, because like you said, if they're your friends, they'll totally understand. They'll be like, yeah, okay, cool. Smoke if you got them. Take a quick bathroom break, or go throw a pizza in the oven or something, whatever.
And
go to the corner store and buy some Kit Kats. I don't know.
As long as you give me a break.
Give me a break.
Mm-hmm. I love Kit Kats. Oh my goodness. They're part of what makes my face this lovely round shape. So, oh man, I just lost my thought.
I derailed your train of thought.
I did it myself, making a fat joke. So one of the things that we have said on the show for many years, Sharkbone has been around for 6 years now. And at some point in all of those years, one of us on the show has always said, take 5. Take 5 is never a bad thing, unless you already know where you're going and you're at a point of heightened tension. Then don't take 5. But if you as the GM are foundering, you're looking for direction, take 5. In my experience, it has never been a bad thing. I've been able to save game sessions where things are just going horribly, my story or my lack of story in some cases, because there have been times where I'm just like, I'm just going to wing it. I'll figure it out. And it sucks. So I've been able to save stories by saying, okay, I thought I could wing this. It's obviously not working. Give me 5. I need to figure out where to go from here. And I'll even go around the table and say, what do you want? Give me a scene. Give me a scene. Give me a scene. Something they want to see in the game. I'll write those down, and then I'll take the 5 and I'll look at those scene ideas and say, okay, this one looks good, and this gives me an idea for a story we could do for the rest of the evening. And then I create something out of it, and then I go back to the table and we have fun for the rest of the night. And there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Right, because gaming is collaborative storytelling. And I've always said that the players are not only the writers, but they're also the audience. And
Exactly.
so,
Even the GM is the audience.
oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
As Vincent Baker said in Apocalypse World, play to find out what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But talking to your players, for me, I never would have thought to do that, when I was starting out, because that's crazy. It's my story, but it's not. Everybody is equal shareholder in it. So talk to your players, get ideas from them. Be like, look, I don't know what's going on, or I have a few ideas, but what do you think we should do? How do you think we should take this? Or a great kind of sneaky thing is listen to your players' conjecture
Mm-hmm.
about, I totally think that it's X. And if you're like, oh wow, that's a great idea, then you make it X. Well, they're the one who wrote it. They might not know it, but then they get that, oh, I totally called it.
Mm-hmm.
Or the opposite, oh my god, I totally hope it's not Y. Well, guess what? It is.
Yeah.
Because you were so afraid that it would happen. Because I guess this is getting a little off topic of railroading and into, GM world building advice. But as a GM, you have so many plates that you're spinning, and players don't have that many. They have more time to think about, worry about, and come up with crazy theories as to why something is the way it is, or who someone is, or whatnot. So they have a lot more creativity to spare, because as a GM, you're pretty much running 100% the entire game session.
Right.
Players take breaks. What do they do when they're not in the scene, or they're not it's not their turn in combat? Think, okay, what's going on? How is this going to change? Or what do I hope it is? What do I hope it isn't? And how does this tie in with, something random that you just kind of threw in there for show that one of the players latches onto? So, pay attention to that. They can help lay their own rails.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're laying it, it's obviously something that they want to do. So it's not bad railroading.
Yeah. I think the moral of this episode is probably use as much rail as you're comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
and always be willing to abandon rail you've already laid to lay more rail in the direction the players want to go.
Yep.
Always make sure that it's a direction you want to go as well, because you don't have to go anywhere that you don't want to. And I'm speaking in the lines and veils things. If they're venturing into territory that makes you uncomfortable, and you don't want to stretch that area of your comfort, then you can just flat out say, I can't go there.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do that. Let's figure something else out to do. But lots of communication between GMs and players. Players, if you're listening to this and you've got rail that you want to lay for your character, you have a specific arc laid out for them that you want them to experience in the game session, feel free to give that to the GM and say, I want this stuff to happen. But don't feel like you can't when something more interesting happens. Don't feel like you can't change your arc and go a different way.
You can always come back.
You can. And I think those changes are one of the things that makes gaming as exciting as it is, at least for me. I like seeing those surprises, those changes. I like it when a character kind of takes on a personality of their own and they become a person in my head and in the heads of the other people at the table. And you're like, wow, I'm playing this guy. I'm controlling everything he does. I just didn't see that coming, either because of a failed dice roll or a successful dice roll. And then you have to figure out something that you hadn't thought of before.
I think that's a great place to end it, because that's amazing advice.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. And thank you for watching if you joined us during the live show. Remember, our pod chatters are always recorded live. We're doing them at 7 p.m. Pacific time on a Thursday. Watch Twitter, and you'll see the announcement for it. Or you can watch the YouTube page. I believe it will advertise the live events there.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And again, thank you guys so much. Remember to find more episodes at sharkbonepodcast.com. Subscribe on iTunes, review us, and rate us on iTunes. It helps more people find the show. And I'm all about sharing our content with a lot of other people. I'm especially very proud about the Cradle of Darkness series that we've been going through. It's been a lot of fun editing it, and it was a lot of fun running it. And I'm excited for everyone to hear it all the way to the end. With that, I will just say good night and join the frenzy.
Have a good one, y'all. And remember, always check for switches.
Toot toot.